Hope you had a good weekend. Certainly one group did, because, well, an organization of radical Muslims and their supporters met to, guess what, denounce Israel, splash around in anti-Semitism, the usual sort of weekend activity, really. But this happened in Toronto. Now, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs filmed it, and Steve McDonald is from that group. Clan McDonald, old Jewish tribe, very lost one, I suppose. What happened?
Well, I think the video speaks for itself. I don't think any reasonable person could view this and not quickly come to the conclusion that criticism of Israel has crossed the line into anti-Semitism. In the video, we see Israel accused of being a cancer that must be killed. Israelis are called barbarians, bloodsuckers, inhuman. This has nothing to do with criticism of Israeli policies, and it certainly has nothing to do with peace, because you can't negotiate with cancer, and you can't make peace with a bloodsucker, and you certainly can't reconcile with a barbarian. And this is language that dehumanizes Israelis and renders the entire country irredeemable. And I also just want to point out, if you look at the video, you can see a number of kids in the crowd. You know, this is Canada, and Canadians don't raise their kids to hate other people. But that's exactly what we saw going on here.
Now, this is a Shia Muslim grouping?
Yes, CASMO is the organization that hosts this event. They are a Shia Muslim organization based in Canada, inspired by Iranian values, Khomeini's Iranian values. They've done some very controversial things in the past, including posting some of the material from the KKK activist David Duke on their website. They, again, host this as an annual event in honor of Al-Quds Day, first formed by the Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979.
Al-Quds, I should point out, is what many in the Arab world call Jerusalem.
Absolutely, yes. But it goes well beyond the state of Israel. Al-Quds Day was formed as a way to rally the Muslim world to export the Islamic Revolution beyond Iran, beyond the Middle East even, to countries around the world. And so this is why we see Hezbollah flags in the background. Hezbollah, as you know, Michael, is a Lebanese-based terror organization banned in Canada. It has 40,000 missiles today pointed at the state of Israel, and in its wildest fantasies, it would destroy Israel and establish a strict Islamic state in its place. Hezbollah was formed by Iran, and today it is trained, funded, directed, and supplied by Iran. So,
okay, now, a couple of things. First of all, there was a time when any criticism of Israeli policy, if it was made within moments, you're an anti-Semite. You know, I'm much older than you. I'm a very, very old man now. But I can remember not so long ago when reasonable people, Palestinians, who have a right to criticize, would make a comment and you're anti-Semitic. And also, I know particularly young Palestinians today who haven't got an ounce of anti-Jewish feeling in them. So was this just a small, eccentric example of the lunacy on the fringes of the anti-Israel community?
Well, I think one of the reasons this has come about, and one of the reasons why many on the left have joined forces with this sort of protest, is because of the fact that many people are simply uninformed about what Zionism is. And so the opposition is presenting a case for anti-Zionism rather than anti-Semitism. And so I mean, if you look at anti-Zionism, anti-Zionism is simply a denial of the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. Zionism is not an endorsement of any Israeli policy. All governments, all democratic governments, should be criticized with fair criticism for their policies. But the fact is that Israel, of course, ironically, is the only liberal democracy in a part of the world that is crying out for liberal democracy. And so those on the far left who have taken up this cause need to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, what am I really doing to promote human rights when I attend an Iranian-sponsored, or Iranian, I should say, inspired rally? You know what happens in Iran. Women are stoned for adultery. Gay people are hung in the streets. Yep. And I think that they need to recognize that in doing this, this sort of activity, they're joining forces with some very extreme people.
The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, that's the new organization, an amalgamation of various Jewish activist bodies in the country. They filmed all of this. They were there. Was it only Shia Muslims, or were there other people from outside, perhaps the Islamic community, who were present?
Well, one notable exception was there was no one there from the political sector, which is a good thing because, again, this is an annual event. Politicians have long tuned into the fact that this is an extreme group. There was one speaker who was presented as being there, quote, from the United Church.
From the United Church?
Yes. Now, I don't believe she was really there from the United Church. But that said, I do think that that institution has...
Was she there?
She was, and she spoke.
A United Church minister, and let's be quite candid here. Look, the reason Israel does it is if Christians had behaved more like Christians over the centuries, frankly, most Jews would have been happier staying in Vienna and London and Paris than being in the Negev desert. So Christian anti-Semitism, to a large extent, creates the need for a Jewish state, and the United Church minister is at an organization, an event, saying that Israelis are barbarians and the Jewish state is cancer.
Well, I want to clarify. I don't believe she's a minister. She is a lay leader and an activist within that organization, pushing that organization to adopt a boycott of Israel. And so, you know, my father was raised in the United Church. He hasn't seen this video yet, but when he does, he's going to be very unimpressed that that church's name was abused in this way. And I think thousands of United Church members would feel the same way.
Well, I hope. Are there thousands left in that church? I don't really know. This comes at a time when in Syria, in Libya, people in Iraq, ordinary Muslims are being murdered and slaughtered by others in the Islamic Arab world. There's a need to come down very hard on so many Arab countries, but they choose this time to call Israel cancerous and barbaric.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lesson from history here, and that is that historically speaking, anti-Semitism has always used the highest values of the era as cover for legitimacy. If we look at the Christian world during the Middle Ages, Jews were accused of being a threat to Christianity. If we look at the Enlightenment period, Jews were accused of being a threat to reason. They were accused of being irrational and superstitious. If we look at 19th century Europe, Jews were accused of being a threat to the nation state. And today, the state of Israel, the world's only Jewish state, a tiny state, is accused of being, by some on the far left, the greatest threat to human rights in the world. And so I think that those on the far left who've taken this anti-Zionist position need to realize that their own values, our own values, are being used against them to bring them on board with some very hate-filled stuff.
Steve McDonald, thank you very much, and I mean that. Thank you.
Thanks.